You're listening to the WCHE Morning Magazine on the Talk of Chester County. WCHE 1520 AM and streaming worldwide at WCHE1520.com.
8:30 on the WCHE Morning Magazine. Doug Sterling and Tom Casey. Just a quick look at the traffic map, and things are still running smoothly in Chester County. Just the main construction zone there, Route 30 and 202. A little bit of a slowdown, Route 30 eastbound at 322, but Route 1, the Turnpike, Route 100, 82, 51, everything else running smoothly throughout Chester County. Good job so far. It's 8:31. Tom, you were telling us about something very disturbing Tuesday when you're here about a mechanics lien.
So, a lot of listeners are aware of what's happening in Chester County and across the state with, pipeline development.
Right.
And everybody's been saying for a long time now that, this is good for us, the chambers and a lot of government officials, that this isn't a concern. We shouldn't worry. We're all going to benefit, and it's bringing jobs, and all that good stuff. So then you have, people out there that are, anyone who's fighting against this, they're called NIMBYs and environmental nut jobs, and and there's people out there that are pro drilling, and energy, and I'm not against energy. I'm against doing it, poorly and unwisely, So, and then we even have people that have gone to jail over trying to protect their properties from this kind of stuff. But everybody's been saying, especially in this region, not to worry about these corporations. They'll do the right thing, and they keep saying it. We've seen the commercials with regards to how wonderful this is. Just before Thanksgiving, we have David on the phone here. He alerted me to a letter that he had received, and it was a notice of a potential lien, mechanics lien against his property for unpaid wages. So we kind of sat on it for a little bit because it was a legal issue, his personal, properties and all that. In the letter, it talked about putting liens against several properties. And the amounts were, $492,000, $9.3 million, $292,000, $179,000, and then there was one against Twin Valley School District for $5 million for unpaid wages for a subcontractor against the Sunoco project. And then just the other day, WGAL ran a spot that people in Lebanon County were also getting hit with these potential liens with a completely different company on the Williams Atlantic Sunrise project.
Okay.
So now we have two. Mm-hmm. So the first time you hear this, you're like, well, maybe it's just a fluke thing or whatever. We have two separate companies, two separate projects being hit with the same thing. They're not paying their bills.
All right, David, thanks for joining us to tell us about this. What county are you in?
I reside in the corner of Berks County, or just outside of Morgantown.
Okay.
I'm kind of wedged right there between Lancaster and Chester.
All right. Now, did you actually have the pipeline run through your property?
Yes. The original ME1 lines run through my property, and I was approached in late 2015 for the installation of ME2. Quite honestly, I was an uninformed individual at the point in time, and thought, well, this great big check in my mind was a great thing to sign on to, and didn't realize what I was getting into as an uninformed property owner.
I'm sure the pitch to you was, we're going to run it through your property. Don't worry, it'll look like it was never there when we're said and done. And here's a nice check to
you won't even know we're there,
right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So
the most recent events, and it's been a long, tedious, troublesome project for me. I won't get too deep into it, but I happened to be on vacation, and I got a letter in the mailbox, and my better half was at home, and she said, well, this looks like it's a legal thing, and she sent me photos of the papers, and I'm across the country, and I see, I'm on the hook for $500,000.
Ooh.
And I don't know even how to deal with it.
Because you didn't pay the labor bill, the bill for the labor who put the pipeline in your property.
That's correct.
Right.
So,
now, this company,
and Tom mentioned about, people who are against energy, and I'm not one of those individuals. I want it done right. I want it done safely. I'm not against the advancement of business, but when this business leaves the bill on my doorstep, that's
right.
going to cause some issues for me.
Sure.
Well, and since then we've done some homework on this, and what we've learned is this mechanics lien law. I've been getting conflicting legal input. Okay. Last night I was at the Downingtown School District meeting, and I tried to bring it to their attention. They didn't want to hear what I had to say, because I wasn't a Downingtown School District.
Oh, yeah. You got to be a resident.
Resident. And I said, well, this is going to potentially impact all of us. And so they didn't want to hear it. But afterwards, Guy Donatelli, who was their solicitor, came over and asked what I was, talking about. Now, he says that it's not possible for this to happen. But I've had other attorneys tell me that it is possible for this to occur. So there's going to be a massive legal battle. And what happens is the law stipulates that David and anyone like him, if this is his primary residence, is not responsible for this money. However, if David owns multiple properties, or like he said, if he wanted to subdivide his property out, then he would be on the hook, really? According to the law. So, and then out west, it's hard. Here we don't deal with multiple properties so much, but out there, you have people that own multiple spots of land, and these projects are running through. So if it's not their primary residence, they're going to get hit with this lien, and the lien is going to impact anything they want to do, credit-wise. They try to sell their land or their property or whatever. They can't.
Now, David, when you're going through this situation, even if you're ultimately exonerated and you're not liable, you still have to pay money to defend yourself, to prove that they can't come against you, right?
Yes, I'm sure there's going to have to be some sort of expense for me to even defend myself. And what Tom's saying is true, that there's not a lot of legal precedence to determine whether or not, and it really is up to the subjective opinion of a judge whether or not he says it'll stand or not.
Right.
So, and without any...
Go ahead, sorry.
Without any precedence, I might be on the hook to defend myself in the case that the suit is abandoned by Sunoco, or they decide to continue to pursue it.
Well, right. So now, when they originally gave you this deal and said, it's going to be wonderful, it's going to be great, and you get some money out of this, did you have to sign any waivers, or did they give you anything in a contract that says you are completely exonerated from any problems in the future?
No, the right-of-way contracts really do speak more to what you can and can't do on the right-of-way, what is legal for them to do and not do on the right-of-way. I don't remember a specific clause that says anything about non-liable for damages or
right, and that does have
claims.
To be written into your original contract that they're releasing you from any responsibilities for that. And but what's troubling here is the fact that they're going after a school district. Yeah. Okay. Are they going to be going after municipalities, county properties, and then which are taxpayer money? Right. Is that going to impact our bond ratings and our ability to secure monies for projects and whatnot? And then but what I was reading through this history, because again, you learn something new and you immediately I'm the kind of person, I just go full tilt and learn everything I can possibly learn. And this is what strikes me as odd, that our state legislature, when they originally created this law in 1901, that they actually say that mines, pipelines, and wells for the production of gas, oil, and other volatile or mineral substances are all listed as improvements to your property. Improvements.
So, David, you can double the value of your home, apparently.
Right.
But you can't sell it because there's a lien against it.
Right.
Right. Well, at $492,000, you're essentially doubling the value of my home as it is. So.
Right. Now, didn't you reach out to your state senator?
Yes,
Schwank?
I did. Senator Schwank has been, I wouldn't say an anti-pipe advocate, but she's willing to at least hear and address some of the issues, and she has reached out into other interagencies as far as the DEP and the PUC to help me through some questions I've had. Specifically with this one, she did contact PUC Chair Gladys Brown, and they're working through some processes to discover whether or not this is a possibility.
Right. So she'd sent a letter to the PUC. She expressed her concerns in this letter. I did see a copy of it. And did she get a response, or you don't know yet?
I have not received a response yet, no.
Do you think there'll be any legislation that will have to be drafted in order to clarify this going forward and hopefully grandfather you in?
Well, I should hope so. Unfortunately, you can't make selective legislation specifically to combat a known issue. So what we have to look back to is when they made the modification to the mechanics lien laws in 1963, they actually removed a list of structures when they said, well, they're not really necessary for us to list these. It's an improvement. It's an improvement.
Yep.
But we're going to have to look for an addendum or some sort of clarification to say an improvement that is a viable use by the homeowner.
Well, and here's where this matters, because I do have that section, that says here, the Pennsylvania courts have further defined an improvement as a permanent addition to real property that enhances its capital value and is designed to make the property more useful or valuable. Do you think this is making your property, number one, a capital improvement, or useful or valuable? I mean, how do you feel about it? Because I know the answer to that question.
Sure. Well, I can't see how it improves the property value whatsoever. If anything, it has a detraction in property value because you have the loss of use of the surface area for, numerous different things. You can't build a structure on it. You can't grow trees on it. You're basically limited to farming over top of a right-of-way. And at any point in time, they could come in and basically do labors on that. So, farming is even questionable over top of a right-of-way.
How deep is the pipeline on your property? Do you know?
It ranges from 36 to 48 inches, to my knowledge.
That's not much. Yeah.
And then across the street, there's a process called the horizontal directional drill, which originates on my property, and it reaches a terminal depth of 80 feet below grade.
Wow.
Right. And you had who working on your property? Was it welded or United?
I had a multitude of individuals. I've seen welded, UPI, Michaels. There's been a troop of individuals cascading over the last 18 months working.
So what do you do next, David? What's the next step for you?
Well, at this point in time, I'm in a holding pattern. The initial date was November 8th, so I have to wait until December 8th, and then whatever lead time it is to get notices in Berks County Court to get matriculate down to me. But I'm waiting to see if a lien is actually filed, and then I'll have to go into defense from there.
Wow.
Right. And then that's going to have to get cleared off of his record, and that's going to take some doing as well.
And then it would be nice, right, but I don't know if you'll be able to do this. Assuming you're cleared and everything is finally back to the way it should have been in the first place, can you go back to Sunoco or whoever and get your money back from your legal fees and your defenses?
There is some law, the remedies written into the lien law that spells out what we can and can ask for as owners of the property to the contractors and subcontractors. And one of those is a surety held for the amount of the lien in case the contractor abandons it. And it also has compensation for legal fees.
Right. And here's something that's important, right?
But let me follow up on that real quick, Tom, because those legal fees, although it is spelled out in the law that I can get them back, I would probably still have to fight legally to get them.
Yes, exactly. and this is a little caveat here that needs to be understood. These big boy, let's call them the big boy contractor, right?
Yeah.
And you have all the little boy subs who aren't getting paid. They're using invested money. They're not spending it wisely. They're not paying their subs. But at the end of the day, the big boys who are LLCs can, if times get too tough for them, and Sunoco has had another open season, which means they're asking for more money right now. If they choose that they can't pay their bills, they can go Chapter 11, and a lower ranking LLC can take them over, which essentially wipes out the debt. And this just occurred this year with the Philadelphia Energy Solutions plant down in Philadelphia, with Sunoco and the Carlyle Group filed for bankruptcy. Now, at the time, they owed $3.8 billion in back taxes. Right. So, so what happened was that there's this article in Seeking Alpha that talks Energy Transfer has excelled at imposing such self-distribution cuts over the past 4 years. They've rolled 4 publicly traded entities into one. So essentially one a year. In each case, the lower yielding entity acquired the higher yielding one, resulting in a low distribution for investors in the acquirer. So investors lose out. They don't get what they're promised. The debt is no longer there, so the $3.8 billion in tax money is gone, and these companies continue on. And they just take you and make you, instead of the CEO, you're the COO now in the new entity, and they continue on. So the big boys don't suffer. We do.
Well, David, I'm sorry to hear that you're having to go through this, but I guess you got to do what you can to defend yourself, and hopefully there's enough of a groundswell of complaint and support for you that the lawmakers will be forced to address this in such a way that it's fair to the landowners, the property owners. It's not your fault that the big company didn't pay their subs, so you shouldn't be on the hook. You shouldn't have to have this kind of stress in your life.
Just before Christmas.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it really comes down to whether or not you wanted the project is inconsequential, but we weren't responsible for designing the project. We weren't responsible for hiring the contractors or ultimately letting the contractors go. But now we're responsible for the bill.
Well, and one of those contractors, David, this United, from my understanding, they were released due to incompetence. And if that's the case, then how concerned should we be if these contractors are being fired because they can't do the work properly about what's in the ground? That's a concern that I have with having, potentially 3 or 4 pipes outside my house. So that's a big concern. So listen, I wish you well on this. Stay in touch, keep us informed. But you have a good attitude. David is one of the most positive people that I've met in this whole ordeal, and I wish you and your family well for the holidays, and I hope that this gets resolved for you and your neighbors.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your time.